The trade station Vila 7 floated in the cold darkness between stars. It was old and ugly, built from metal plates welded together over hundreds of years. Millions of beings lived there. They came from dozens of worlds, speaking hundreds of languages, all looking for something. Some wanted money. Some wanted safety. Some just wanted to survive another day. Was one of those who only wanted to survive. She was a species that most other races did not respect. They were small and thin. Their skin was covered in pale silver scales that looked almost white under bright lights. They had large eyes that glowed softly in the dark, and their fingers were long and delicate. They had no claws, no sharp teeth, no poison, no armor. In a galaxy where strength meant everything, they had nothing that others considered valuable. They had been conquered 300 years ago. Now they were scattered across the stars, working as servants, cleaners, and laborers. They were bought and sold like tools. Most species treated them like objects, not people. Had been sold 7 times in her 22 years of life. Her current owner was a merchant named. There were large reptilian creatures with thick green scales and yellow eyes. They were known for being cruel and violent. Was worse than most. He ran a salvage operation in the lower levels of Vila 7. His workers would steal broken ships and equipment and then would sell the parts. It was illegal, but the station authorities did not care about what happened in the lower levels. Down there, the only law was power. Worked in repair bay. Her job was to fix broken machines. She was good at it, even though no one ever told her so. She could listen to a broken engine and somehow understand what was wrong with it. She did not know why she could do this. She only knew that it helped her stay useful, and staying useful meant staying alive. But tonight she had failed. A gravity coil had come in, damaged beyond what any normal repair could fix, had demanded she repair it in 2 hours. She had worked as fast as she could, her thin fingers moving desperately through wires and circuits. But 2 hours was not enough. The coil needed at least 6 hours of work, maybe more. When came to check on her progress, she was still working. He did not ask for an explanation. He did not give her more time. He simply grabbed her by the arm and threw her against the wall. She heard something crack in her forearm. The pain was immediate and terrible. Useless, growled. His voice was like stones grinding together. I paid good credits for you. They told me we're good with machines, but you cannot even fix a simple coil. Tried to speak, tried to explain that the coil was not simple, that it would have been impossible for anyone to fix in 2 hours. But her voice would not come. Fear had frozen her throat. Hit her again, and again. When he was finished, he dragged her to a door at the back of his workshop. It led to the abandoned corridors, the places where the station's forgotten and unwanted lived in darkness. He threw her through the door. Do not come back, he said. You are worth nothing to me now. The door closed. Lay on the cold metal floor, her arm burning with pain, her body covered in bruises. She was alone. The abandoned corridors were dangerous. Everyone knew that. Criminals hid there. Desperate people who had nothing to lose. Strange creatures that had escaped from cargo ships and now hunted in the darkness. Had heard stories of people who went into the abandoned corridors and never came out. She tried to stand, but her legs would not hold her. She had not eaten in 3 days. Believed that hungry workers worked harder. Now, without food or water or medical care, she knew she would not last long. She crawled instead. She did not know where she was going. She only knew that she could not stay where she was. She crawled past broken pipes and piles of garbage. She crawled through puddles of water that smelled wrong. She crawled until her arms gave out and she collapsed against a rusted wall. This is where I die, she thought, alone in the dark, and no one will know, no one will care. She closed her eyes. She could hear the distant hum of the station's machinery, a sound she had always found comforting. It was the sound of systems working, of power flowing, of life continuing. But now it seemed to mock her. The station would keep running long after she was gone. Her life meant nothing to it. She did not know how much time passed. Minutes, hours, it did not matter. She drifted in and out of consciousness, the pain in her arm coming and going like waves. Then she heard footsteps. Her eyes opened. In the dim light she saw a figure approaching. It was not large like a, not tall like a. It was smaller, walking upright on two legs, carrying a light in one hand. A human. Had seen humans before, but she had never spoken to one. They were a strange species, relatively new to the galaxy. They had only been traveling between stars for a few hundred years, which was nothing compared to older races. Most species did not take humans seriously. They were soft, weak-looking, with no natural weapons or defenses. Many aliens wondered how they had survived at all. The human stopped in front of her. He was male, with dark hair and dark eyes. His skin was a warm brown color, and his face looked young but tired. He wore simple work clothes covered in grease stains and carried a bag of tools over one shoulder. For a long moment he just looked at her, waited for him to walk away. Why would he help her? She was worthless. Everyone said so. But he did not walk away. Instead, he knelt down beside her. He moved slowly, carefully, the way someone might approach a frightened animal. His eyes moved over her injuries, taking note of her broken arm, her bruises, her thin and starving body. "Can you walk?" he asked. His voice was soft. There was no anger in it, no disgust, no pity, just a simple question. Tried to answer, but only a weak sound came out. She shook her head. The human nodded as if this was expected. He set down his light and his bag. Then, very gently, he slid his arms under her body. He lifted her as if she weighed nothing at all. "My name is," he said. "I have a ship nearby. I can help you." Did not understand. She could not understand. In her entire life, no one had ever helped her without wanting something in return. No one had ever looked at her and seen something worth saving. But she was too weak to resist, too tired to question. She let her head rest against his shoulder and closed her eyes. As carried her through the dark corridors, she heard him humming softly. It was a simple melody, something slow and calm. She did not know the song, but somehow it made her feel safe. For the first time in years, allowed herself to hope. Maybe, just maybe, she was not going to die alone after all. Ship was called the Steadfast. It was a small cargo vessel, old and scratched and dented from years of travel. The paint on the outside had faded to a dull gray. One of the engine covers was held in place with metal wire. It was not a beautiful ship, but it was clean and warm and safe. It looked like paradise. Carried her inside and set her down on a narrow bed in the back of the ship. The bed was small, barely big enough for one person, but it had a real mattress and a real blanket. Could not remember the last time she had slept on something soft. "Your arm is broken," said. He was already opening a medical kit. "I need to set the bone, it will hurt." Nodded. She had experienced pain before. She could handle more. But surprised her. Before he touched her arm, he gave her a small pill. "For the pain," he explained. "It will take a few minutes to work. We can wait." They waited, lay on the bed looking around at the inside of the ship. Every surface was covered with something. Tools hung on the walls in neat rows. Boxes of spare parts were stacked in corners. Strange objects sat on shelves, things did not recognize. There were small music players from different worlds, old books with pages made of real paper, colorful stones, and strange mechanical toys. "You collect things," said. Her voice was rough from not being used. Smiled. It was a small smile, quick and warm. "I travel a lot. I like to keep pieces of the places I visit. Helps me remember that the galaxy is not all bad." When the pain medicine began to work, set her arm. He was gentle and skilled, and although it still hurt, it was not as terrible as had expected. He wrapped her arm in a hard cast and gave her more medicine to help her sleep. "Rest," he said. "I will make food." Slept. When she woke, the ship smelled like cooking. was sitting at a small table eating from a metal bowl. Another bowl sat across from him, steam rising from it. "Protein paste," he said. "I know it does not taste like much, but it has everything your body needs." Sat up slowly. Her arm ached, but the sharp pain was gone. She looked at the bowl of food. Her stomach made a loud noise. Pushed the bowl toward her. "Eat, please." She ate. The protein paste was bland and thick, but it was warm and it filled her empty stomach. She ate until the bowl was empty and then filled it again. She ate that too. When she was finished, she finally asked the question that had been burning in her mind. "Why?" Looked at her. "Why what? Why are you helping me? I am nothing. Everyone knows this." Was quiet for a long moment. He set down his bowl and leaned back in his chair. His eyes were thoughtful, looking at something far away that could not see. "When humans first came to the stars," he said slowly, "other species laughed at us. They called us weak. They said we were soft and fragile and would not survive. They said we had no claws, no armor, no special abilities. They wondered why the universe had bothered to create us at all." He looked at her. "But we survived. We survived because we help each other, because we do not give up, because we see value in things that others throw away." He pointed at her. "You are not nothing. I do not know who told you that, but they were wrong. Everyone has value. Sometimes it just takes the right person to see it." Did not know what to say. She had never heard anyone speak like this. In her experience, value meant usefulness. If you could not work, you were worthless. If you could not fight, you were weak. If you could not serve, you were garbage to be thrown away. But this human, this strange small creature from a young species, looked at her and saw something different. Before she could respond, there was a loud knock on the ship's door. His face changed. The warmth disappeared, replaced by something harder and more careful. He stood up and walked to the door. His heart began to pound. When the door opened, a large figure stood outside. It was but not. This one was slightly smaller, with a scar across his snout. He wore the black uniform of an enforcer, someone who worked for the powerful criminals of the lower levels. "You are the human called?" the enforcer asked. "I am." "You have something that belongs to. She ran away from her duties. He wants her back." Felt cold fear wash over her. She tried to make herself smaller, tried to disappear into the corner of the bed. But there was nowhere to hide. Did not move. He stood in the doorway, blocking the enforcer's view of the inside of the ship. "She is not property," said. His voice was calm and quiet. "She is crew." The enforcer laughed. It was an ugly sound, like rocks being crushed. "Crew, the enforcer shook his head. "Human, you are even than I thought. They are useless. They cannot fight. They cannot lift heavy things. They can barely keep themselves alive. You are wasting resources on something that will only slow you down." Smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who knew something that others did not. "Then I guess you have nothing to worry about," he said. The enforcer's laughter stopped. He stared trying to understand what he had just heard. Humans were supposed to be afraid. They were supposed to be weak. They were supposed to back down when threatened by larger, stronger species. But this human was not backing down. "Will not forget this," the enforcer said. His voice was lower now, more threatening. "He does not like when people take his things." "She is not a thing," said. "And you can tell that if he wants to discuss this, he knows where to find me." The enforcer stared for a long moment. Then he turned and walked away into the darkness. Closed the door and turned back too. The hard look on his face melted away, replaced by that same gentle warmth she had seen before. "Are you okay?" he asked. Nodded slowly, but inside her mind was spinning. She had just watched a small, soft human face down an enforcer without showing any fear. She had watched him refuse to give her up, even though keeping her would cause him trouble. "You called me crew," she said. Sat down at the table again. "You need a place to stay. I need help with repairs. Seems like a fair trade to me. But I am weak. Everyone says so. Looked at her, and there was something in his eyes that she had never seen before. It took her a moment to recognize it. Belief. He believed in her, not because of what she could do, not because of what she was worth, simply because she existed. Everyone is wrong sometimes, he said. Even most of the time. The trick is learning to stop listening to them. That night slept in a real bed for the first time in years. She slept deeply and without nightmares. And when she woke up, she realized something important. She had found something she thought she would never have. A home. Weeks passed on the steadfast. His arm healed slowly, the bone knitting back together under the hard cast. During this time, she learned the rhythm of life on ship. They traveled from station to station, picking up repair work wherever they could find it. Was good at fixing things. Very good. He could look at a broken machine and understand how it worked, how it had failed, and how to make it work again. Other species brought him their problems, and he solved them. Word had spread that the human mechanic was reliable and honest, which was rare in the outer systems. Helped where she could. At first her help was small. She organized tools, putting them in neat rows so he could find what he needed quickly. She cleaned components, wiping away grease and dust. She monitored the communication channels, listening for new job offers or warnings about pirates. She apologized constantly. I am sorry I am so slow. I am sorry I cannot lift that. I am sorry I am not more useful. Every time she apologized, would look at her with patient eyes and say, "You are doing fine. Stop apologizing." But could not stop. Her whole life she had been told that she was a burden, that she was weak, that she was lucky anyone kept her alive at all. Those words had sunk deep into her mind, becoming part of how she saw herself. She did not know how to think any other way. Then something happened that changed everything. Had been hired to recover data from a salvaged navigation drive. The drive had been found in a wrecked ship, and the owner wanted to know where the ship had been before it was destroyed. But the drive was badly damaged. The data inside was corrupted, scrambled into nonsense. Worked on it for hours. He tried every tool he had, every technique he knew. Nothing worked. The data remained a mess of broken signals and meaningless noise. I cannot fix this, he admitted finally. He sat back in his chair, rubbing his tired eyes. The corruption is too deep. I would need special equipment that I do not have. Was sitting nearby, watching. She had been listening to work, listening to the sounds of his tools and the soft hum of the damaged drive. Without thinking, she said, "The pattern is not random." Looked at her, what? The corruption. It sounds like it has a pattern, like a song with missing notes. Frowned, he did not understand what she meant. Sounds, I do not hear anything. Realized what she had said and felt embarrassed. I am sorry, I did not mean to interrupt. It is nothing. But was looking at her differently now. He was curious. What do you mean it sounds like a song? He asked. The drive is not making any sound. It is, said quietly. I can hear it, the electricity inside, the signals they have, tones, frequencies. I have always been able to hear them. I thought everyone could. Was silent for a long moment. Then he stood up and walked to the drive. He picked it up and brought it too. Can you tell me what you hear? Took the drive carefully. She held it close to her ear, though she did not really need to. The sounds came to her naturally, like a voice speaking directly into her mind. She listened. There are three main tones, she said slowly. Two of them are steady, but one of them keeps jumping. It breaks the pattern. If that tone was removed, the other two would flow together properly. Connected the drive to his computer and pulled up a display of the data. It looked like chaos, random numbers and symbols with no order. Can you show me where the jumping happens? He asked. Looked at the screen. The numbers meant nothing to her, but the sounds did. She pointed to a section of data. There and there, and there again. Isolated those sections and examined them. His eyes went wide. These are interference signals, he said. Someone added false data to hide the real information. It is a security measure. He looked at with amazement. You found it in seconds. I have been looking for hours. Together they worked on the drive, would listen and point to problems, would remove them. Piece by piece, the corrupted data became clear. After an hour, they had recovered the entire navigation history. Sat back and stared at the completed file. Then he stared at. You can do this with any system, he asked. Thought about it. She had always been able to hear machines. When she worked she had used this ability to repair things faster, but she had never told anyone about it. She had assumed it was normal, or that it was too small a gift to matter. I think so, she said. We all can. We can perceive electromagnetic frequencies as sound. We hear what others cannot. And no one knows about this. Shook her head. No one ever asked. They only asked us to clean and carry. Laughed. It was not a mocking laugh. It was a laugh of joy and wonder. He said, do you understand what this means? You can hear lies in translator devices. You can detect ships before sensors see them. You can find problems in any system just by listening. This is not a small gift. This is incredible. Did not know how to respond. Her whole life, she had been told she was weak because she could not fight. She had been told she was useless because she could not carry heavy loads. She had been told she was worthless because she could not do what other species could do. But was telling her something different. He was telling her that her difference was not a weakness. It was a strength that had been hidden, ignored, forgotten by everyone except a young human who had bothered to listen. You are not weak, said. His voice was serious now. You have never been weak. You have been placed in a galaxy that measures strength only by violence. A galaxy that taught you to believe you had nothing to offer. But that was a lie, a terrible lie. Felt something strange happening inside her chest. It took her a moment to understand what it was. She was crying. Not from sadness, not from pain, from something else. Something she had not felt in so long that she had forgotten its name. Hope. I do not know how to be strong, she whispered. Smiled and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. That is okay, he said. I will help you learn. From that day forward, everything changed. Practiced her abilities, learning to control them, to focus them, to use them with intention rather than instinct. She learned that she could hear approaching ships from minutes away. She learned that she could detect lies by listening to the tiny fluctuations in electronic translation devices. She learned that she could diagnose any machine simply by listening to its inner workings. She was not a burden. She was not weak. She was something else entirely. And for the first time in her life, she was beginning to believe it. 6 months had passed since found in the dark corridors of Vila 7. In that time they had become a team. More than a team, they had become family. The Steadfast traveled across the outer systems, taking jobs that no one else could do. Word had spread about the human mechanic and his partner. They could fix anything. They could find data that others said was lost forever. They could solve problems that had stumped the best engineers in the sector. Their reputation grew. Their credits grew too. For the first time in her life had money of her own. She bought new clothes that actually fit her body. She bought books to read during long journeys. She bought small gifts for silly things that made him laugh. She was happy, truly happy. But happiness, she would learn, could be a fragile thing. Had not forgotten. The merchant had spent months watching and waiting. He had heard the stories about the who could hear machines speak. He had learned that his former property, the slave he had thrown away like garbage, was now earning more credits in a month than he made in a year. His pride could not accept this. In his mind still belonged to him. Everything she earned, everything she achieved was stolen from him. He wanted it back. He wanted her back, and he wanted the human who had dared to defy him to suffer. The attack came without warning. The Steadfast was traveling through empty space between stations, was in the back of the ship, listening to a damaged sensor array she was repairing, was in the pilot's seat, reading technical documents on his screen. Then heard something, a sound that did not belong, a distant hum like thunder rolling across an empty sky. She said sharply, "Ships, 3 of them coming fast." Did not question her. He immediately turned to the sensors. They showed nothing, but he had learned to trust ears more than any machine. "How far?" he asked. 2 minutes, maybe less. His hands moved across the controls. The Steadfast's engines roared to life, pushing the ship to maximum speed. But even as they accelerated, knew it would not be enough. The sounds were getting louder. The ships were faster than them. 30 seconds later, the sensors finally detected what it heard minutes ago. 3 attack skiffs, small and fast and armed with weapons designed to destroy ships like the Steadfast. Then the communication system crackled with a familiar voice. Human, it was. His voice was thick with anger and satisfaction. "Did you really think you could steal from me and face no consequences? Did you think I would forget?" His jaw tightened. "I did not steal anything, came with me by her own choice. Is property my property? She does not get to choose." Laughed, that ugly grinding sound that remembered from her nightmares. "Here is what will happen. You will stop your ship. You will surrender and maybe, if you beg nicely, I will let you live." The 3 skiffs appeared on the visual display. They were spreading out, surrounding the Steadfast, cutting off any escape route. Their weapons were already powered and ready to fire. Looked at, his face was calm, but she could see the tension in his shoulders. "Your call," he said quietly. Stared at the display. 3 ships, dozens of weapons, enough firepower to turn the Steadfast into dust in seconds. Every logical part of her brain screamed at her to surrender, to go back to accept that this was her fate. She was weak. She could not fight. But another part of her, a part that had been growing stronger every day for the past 6 months, refused. She thought about everything had taught her, about strength that did not come from violence, about value that did not depend on what others thought, about the lie she had been told her entire life. "I am not going back," she said. Smiled. It was the same smile he had given the enforcer months ago, dangerous and confident and completely unafraid. "Then let us show them what weak really looks like." The battle began. The Steadfast was not a warship. It had no weapons, no shields, no armor. Against 3 armed skiffs, it should have been destroyed in moments, but was not fighting a normal battle. Closed her eyes and listened. She could hear everything: the hum of the enemy engines, the whine of their targeting systems, the pulse of their shield generators. Each ship was a symphony of sounds, and she could hear every note. "The lead ship," she said. "Its targeting system uses a frequency of 7.3. If you broadcast a pulse on that same frequency, it will blind their sensors." His fingers flew across the controls. The Steadfast communication array was not designed for combat, but it could still broadcast signals. He sent a pulse on exactly the frequency. The lead skiff's sensors went dark. Its pilot cursed and fired blindly, the shots going wide, hitting nothing but empty space. "The second ship," continued. "Its shield generator has a harmonic weakness at 12.8. A sustained signal will cause it to overload." Adjusted the pulse. 3 seconds later, the second skiff's shields flickered and died with a shower of sparks. "The third ship is changing position," said. Her eyes were still closed, her face calm, her voice steady. "It is going to fire in 4 seconds. Turn left 30 degrees and dive." Turned left. The Steadfast dove. Energy blasts shot through the space where they had been a moment earlier. On the communication channel was screaming orders. His pilots were confused. How was this small cargo ship dodging their attacks? How did it know exactly where they were going to fire? How was it disabling their systems without any weapons? Opened her eyes and looked at the display. The three skiffs were in chaos. One was flying blind. One had no shields. The third was spinning wildly, trying to get a shot that would not let them take. "The power core on ship," she said. "It is unstable. Too much energy is flowing through the main conduit. If I send the right frequency, I can trigger a cascade failure. It will not destroy the ship, but it will shut down everything except life support." "Do," said. Focused, she found the frequency, that exact tone that would resonate with power core and shake it apart. She reached for the communication controls and broadcast a single, perfect note. The ship went dark. The battle was over. Opened a channel to disabled vessel. When she spoke, her voice was no longer the quiet whisper of a frightened slave. It was the clear, strong voice of someone who knew exactly who she was. "You threw me away because you thought I was nothing," she said. "You were wrong, and if you ever come for us again, I will take apart every ship you own piece by piece without ever firing a weapon. Do you understand?" There was a long silence. Then's voice came through, shaking with rage and something else, something that sounded almost like fear. "This is not over," he growled. "Yes," said calmly, "it is." She closed the channel, set a course for the nearest station. Behind them, the three disabled skiffs drifted in the darkness, powerless and defeated. Looked at her hands. They were trembling, but not from fear, from something else, from the realization of what she had just done. She had faced her greatest nightmare. And she had won. Reached over and squeezed her shoulder. "That was amazing," he said quietly. Smiled. For the first time in her life, she believed him. The story spread faster than light itself. Within days, everyone in the sector had heard some version of what happened. A member of the weakest species in the known galaxy had defeated three armed raiders without firing a single shot. She had used nothing but her mind and her strange ability to hear what others could not. She had turned their own ships against them, blinded their sensors, collapsed their shields, and shut down their power cores with nothing more than sound. Some people did not believe it. They laughed and said it was impossible. There were slaves and servants, nothing more. They could not fight. They could not win. The story had to be exaggerated. But then the witnesses came forward. Traders who had seen the damaged skiffs limping back to port. Mechanics who had examined the ships and found no external damage, only internal failures. Communication officers who had recorded the battle and heard voice, calm and clear, directing every move. The story was real. And it changed everything. Military analysts began studying for the first time in centuries, powerful species were asking questions about the small, pale creatures they had ignored for so long. What exactly could they hear? How did their perception work? Could this ability be trained or enhanced? Governments and corporations sent representatives to find. They offered her contracts worth more money than she had ever imagined. They wanted her to work for them, to use her gifts to find enemies and solve problems and win battles. She refused them all. "I am not a weapon," she told after another representative left the steadfast empty-handed. "I do not want to hurt people, even people like." Nodded, he understood. "Then what do you want?" Thought about this for a long time. She remembered her life before found her, the years of pain and fear and hopelessness, the constant message that she was worthless, useless, weak. She remembered believing those things. She remembered how close she had come to dying alone in the dark. And she remembered one human who had seen something different. "I want to help others like me," she said finally. Others who have been thrown away and told they are nothing. I want to show them what you showed me." Smiled, "Then let us do that." They started small. A message sent to communities across the sector. An invitation to anyone who needed help. A promise that there was a place where they would be valued, respected, and given a chance to discover their own strength. The first arrived within a week. His name was, and he had been a cleaning servant on a transport ship. When the ship changed owners, he was left behind at a station, forgotten like old cargo. He had nowhere to go and no one to turn to. Welcomed him onto the Steadfast. She fed him, gave him a place to sleep, and then she asked him to listen. "Listen to the ship," she said. "Tell me what you hear." Was confused at first. Like he had always been able to hear machines, but he had never thought it was special. He had assumed everyone could do it. When he realized that this ability was unique to his eyes went wide. "I hear the engine," he said slowly. "It sounds tired. One of the components is wearing out." Smiled. "You are right. Can you tell which component?" Listened more closely. After a moment he pointed to a section of the wall. "There, behind that panel, something is spinning wrong." Opened the panel. Inside they found a worn bearing that was about to fail. If it had broken during travel, it could have damaged the entire engine. "You just saved us a lot of trouble," told. "Thank you." Stared at him. No one had ever thanked him before. No one had ever told him he was useful. He started crying. More came. Some were escaped servants. Some were refugees from stations that had been destroyed or abandoned. Some had been wandering alone for years, surviving on scraps and kindness. All of them had been told the same lie that had believed her whole life. "You are weak, you are worthless, you are nothing." Taught them the truth. The Steadfast became too small, so they acquired a second ship, then a third. Their little fleet traveled together, taking repair jobs and rescue missions. The crew members learned to use their abilities in new ways. One discovered she could detect dangerous radiation before sensors picked it up. Another learned he could communicate with damaged AI systems by listening to their fragmented signals. A third found that she could hear the stress patterns in metal, predicting when structures would fail before they collapsed. They were not weak. They had never been weak. They had simply been judged by standards that did not fit them. One evening, as their little fleet drifted between the stars, sat with on the bridge of the Steadfast. The old ship creaked and hummed around them, familiar sounds that felt like home. "Can I ask you something?" said. "Always." "Why do humans do this?" She gestured around her at the fleet, at the crew members sleeping in nearby bunks, at everything they had built together. "Take in strays, fight for people who cannot fight back, believe in those everyone else has given up on." Was quiet for a long moment. He looked out the window at the endless stars. "Because we remember what it is like to be small," he said finally, "to be overlooked, to have everyone tell you that you do not matter. Humans have been through that, not so long ago, really. Other species thought we were nothing, some still do." He looked at her. "And because sometimes the universe gives you a chance to prove them all wrong, to take someone the galaxy threw away and show everyone what they missed, I think that is worth fighting for, worth living for even." Nodded slowly. She understood now. Humans were not strong because they had weapons or armor or special abilities. They were strong because they refused to accept that anyone was worthless. They looked at the broken and the forgotten and saw a possibility. It was a strange kind of strength, a quiet strength, but it was more powerful than any weapon she had ever seen. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything." Reached over and took her hand. "Thank yourself. I just opened the door, you walked through it." Looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, millions of were still living as slaves and servants, still believing the lie that they were nothing. She could not save all of them, but she could save some, and each one she saved could save others. It would take time, years, maybe decades, but change always started small. She thought about the girl she had been, broken and starving in a dark corridor, waiting to die. She thought about how far she had come since that night. And she thought about all the who were waiting in their own dark corridors, hopping for someone to find them. She would find them. Because she finally understood something important. Strength was not about how hard you could hit. It was not about how much you could carry or how loud you could roar. Strength was about standing up when the whole galaxy told you to stay down. Strength was about believing in yourself when no one else did. And strength, most of all, was about reaching back to help others once you found your own feet. Smiled. She was not weak anymore. She never had been. And now the whole galaxy was going to learn what they were really capable of.